A boy wakes up with a start in the middle of the night. As he looks around, he notices that everything seems strange. However, the biggest shock comes when he looks in the mirror and doesn't recognize his reflection. The story then flashes back 2 weeks, introducing us to Daniel, a shy and overweight teenager who is bullied at school. Led by Jason, the bullies harass and humiliate him daily, taking his money and making fun of him. Later that day, we find a sad and hungry Daniel in his bed. He goes downstairs to prepare instant noodles, but his mother offers to cook for him. An argument ensues when he realizes she's only cracked an egg, and he becomes frustrated because he wanted noodles. They exchange harsh words, with Daniel blaming her for his weight. When he tastes the food and burns his mouth, he has a vivid recollection of his bully's torment. In his pain, he approaches his mother and asks her to transfer him to another school, citing the difficulty of excelling academically in such a hostile environment. While they wash dishes together, his mother opens up about the challenges she faced in adapting to their current living situation. She explains that moving would mean higher rent and a loss of contact with his current school friends. Daniel becomes increasingly angry, recalling the abuse he's endured and insisting that his mother doesn't truly understand him. In a fit of frustration, he punches the wall. The following day, Daniel accidentally collides with a girl who scolds him for not watching where he's going. Another bully intervenes, demanding his uniform. In class, they attempt to hit him with a ball, but he skillfully dodges it, frustrating them as they had placed bets on hitting him. One of the bullies delivers a hard punch, brags in front of his companions, and taunts Daniel about dodging him. They proceed to beat him up in front of everyone, despite his attempts to apologize. His mother arrives to defend him, but they also subject her to humiliation. Daniel, embarrassed, pleads with his mother not to further embarrass him in front of others and apologizes to his aggressor. Upon returning home, he finds his mother, who tells him she'll arrange for his transfer, but he'll have to live alone while she sends him money. She weeps as she prepares a meal for him. Daniel arrives at his new home and calls his mother to reassure her that he'll be fine. In the city, he crosses paths with a girl, triggering memories of his past experiences. But she politely apologizes. Right after, another student named Jim confronts him. Despite Daniel trying to avoid trouble, Jim punches him in front of several students who recorded on their phones. Back in his room, Daniel cries while he watches the video of his beating circulating online. He falls asleep crying, and upon waking, he finds himself in the muscular body we saw at the beginning, not recognizing his reflection. Then he discovers his real lifeless body on the ground. Confused, he returned to his body and realizes it was just a dream. But the nightmare beating was real, and upon seeing the video on his phone, Daniel decided that everything is going to change. The next day, Daniel attracts the girls' attention at school. No one can believe how handsome the new student is. Then, a group of youths dressed in black arrives, who, like the rest, closely observe Daniel's beauty. The other boys are bothered by his presence, as they don't match his attractiveness. Daniel continues in front of his new classmates. The teacher asks them to be nice to him. When he gets to his desk, he thinks about how nervous he feels and is distressed remembering how they treated him before. He introduces himself as Park, the new name he chose for his appearance. A classmate hears his name and fixes herself up to approach him. She says her name is Hannah. The other girls complain that Hannah always flirts with the handsome ones, and Jim reprimands her for being shameless. After class, Daniel causes a commotion among the female students in the cafeteria. One asks to take a picture with him, but Hannah stops her because she wants all of Daniel's attention to herself. From afar, Jim and other classmates look at Daniel with envy. At night, Daniel works at a store, and the manager doubts his ability to work the night shift. But Daniel convinces him that he can do it. The manager thinks his attractiveness will increase sales and offers him the job. Daniel says he's looking for a job for a friend, disappointing the manager. When the real Daniel comes back, the manager refuses to hire him but is impressed by his ability to memorize cigarette brands and hires him. After Daniel helps his first customer, the manager leaves, telling him to convince his handsome friend to work there. During his shift, Daniel writes about his body change. 3 guys from his class enter, and he asks them for ID to sell cigarettes. But upon seeing them, he refuses to avoid losing his job. Jim enters, recognizes Daniel, takes things from the store, and demands Daniel give them to him as gifts. Jim remembers the handsome guy who flirted with his girlfriend, and so they beat him up, leaving him bruised and taking humiliating photos. Daniel cries in frustration while his mother waits on the phone. She asks how he's doing at his new school, and Daniel says fine, although he must go because he's busy. She says her break is ending, surprising Daniel, but hangs up before he can respond. We see his mother collecting cardboard boxes to pay for her son's schooling. Daniel returns to his classes in his handsome new body, needing to step outside for some air first. Everyone cheerfully greets him. Hannah says she wants to show her friends funny photos, but Daniel hears they are his humiliating photos. While Jim's group mocks the beating of Daniel, Daniel gets angry in his new body, wanting to hit them, but just tells Jim he shouldn't talk about another's mother. The bully sees his girlfriend looking at Daniel and gets angry, challenging him with his stare. All the students, even those outside the classroom, watch the possible fight between Daniel and Jim. Daniel says he doesn't want a fight, but Jim prepares to hit him when he sees his girl cares more about Daniel. However, Daniel stops him, but Jim manages to break free and throws a punch at Daniel. He remembers how they beat him as a child, giving him the ability to anticipate punches, though before he couldn't dodge them due to his slow body. Now, with his agile new body, Daniel easily dodges the punch, making Jim look ridiculous. Jim attacks again without success, and when he corners Daniel to deliver the final blow, Daniel stops him with his fists. Although he appears confident, internally, Daniel trembles with fear. Then he realizes everyone is recording the fight, reminding him of past humiliations. He also remembers his mother, which gives him the courage to counterattack Jim. Daniel dodges the punch and delivers a strong fist to Jim's stomach, defeating him. Everyone, astonished, films it and shares the moment. Hannah looks admiringly at Daniel, and the other girl sighs over him, making Jim fill with inner rage. But Daniel can't believe he hit him so hard that he left Jim on the floor. Later in singing and dancing class, we see students abusing another boy while mocking what happened with Daniel. The same happens in architecture class, where several gather to talk about Park. In both cases, the leaders of the bullies worry about Daniel's popularity and looks, and so want to finish him off since he went viral for beating up Jim and messing with leader Vasco and his gang, the Burning Knuckles. In the next scene, Daniel is at work when a woman contemptuously throws a bag of chips on the counter, reminding Daniel of how differently they looked at him in his old body, which saddens him and leaves him pensive. But suddenly, a very nervous boy enters the store, and Daniel doesn't understand why. Daniel can't believe what he's seeing. The thief runs as if his life depends on it, but Daniel doesn't give up. However, when they reach an alleyway, he gets an unpleasant surprise. His old bullies are there. They show him a humiliating photo of himself and threaten him not to say anything. They demand that he fight the thief while they take another picture. The thief apologizes to Daniel and hits him while the bullies laugh at him. One of the bullies tells the thief that if he wins, he'll stop being their errand boy. But then, something unexpected happens. Vasco, the leader of a feared gang, appears out of nowhere and confronts them all. He orders them to leave with a look that makes them tremble. Everyone listens to him and escapes. Vasco tells Daniel and the other boy they must train a lot. The next day, in class, Daniel asks Hannah about Vasco, and she tells him that Vasco is the leader of the gang. Now the idiots from his class approach him. Suddenly, Daniel sees something that catches his attention. Vasco and his gang have arrived. Daniel happily remembers when Vasco saved him, but Vasco looks at him furiously, not recognizing him with his new body. Vasco approaches Daniel, making everyone flee and leaving him alone in front of Vasco. Daniel wants to thank Vasco for what he did yesterday, but he doesn't know how to explain the situation and prefers to stay quiet. Vasco thinks Daniel wants revenge on his friends for what he did to them yesterday and insults him. Vasco grabs Daniel's shoulder and tells him to stop showing off being handsome and good at fighting. Vasco squeezes Daniel's shoulder so hard that it makes him sit down. The members of his gang laugh, seeing Vasco apply his death grip. Hannah wants to stop Vasco, but one of the members of Vasco's gang warns her not to try if she doesn't want to get hurt. Jim enters the cafeteria and is surprised to see the scene. Vasco has grabbed Daniel's shoulder and is squeezing it hard. Jim knows that no one can overcome Vasco's strength or escape from him, but Daniel does something unexpected. He apologizes to Vasco for offending him and takes his hand. With a single movement, Daniel frees himself from Vasco's grip, leaving everyone open-mouthed. Daniel keeps apologizing, but when Vasco is about to hit him, a boy from his gang stops him and tries to calm the situation. The other gang members yell at the boy for stopping the leader, and he tells them that he saved Vasco before Daniel hurt him. Everyone looks at Vasco's arm and sees that it is swollen. Meanwhile, the other students congratulate Daniel, impressed by his strength. Daniel doesn't understand anything and thinks that he doesn't want to fight Vasco. Then, the bullies propose being his friends and invite Daniel to go out and have fun. Hannah finds it very strange and suspects they are plotting something. Daniel gets excited about having friends and fantasizes about what they will do together. Daniel says he wanted to make friends because he waited for it for a long time, but remembers his real life. Still, he accepts his new friend's plan. Daniel asks Jim if he is the girl's boyfriend and why she didn't come, but finds out they are not dating. Jim gets angry, but drunk, he becomes friends with Daniel. Jim says he no longer resents him. Their friends are happy because now they have problems with Vasco and must stay united. Then Daniel faints from the alcohol. Daniel wakes up in his old body and tries to fall asleep again to change back, but it doesn't work. Meanwhile, the guys try unsuccessfully to wake Daniel up. Daniel arrives in his old body and calms down, seeing everything is fine, although the others look at him strangely. He tells them he came to look for his friend. Daniel leaves with his other body in tow. The next day, Daniel's mother arrives home and sees him asleep without having gone to school. She worries about him. Daniel, in his other body, arrives at his house and finds the door open. He enters and sees his other body asleep and his mother. She is surprised to see him. Daniel greets her and introduces himself as a friend of her son's. She is glad her son has friends. Daniel's mother tries to wake him up, but can't. Daniel tells her not to worry, that her son got used to sleeping a lot. She says Daniel didn't tell her anything about it. Daniel explains that her son works nights and that's why he sleeps so much. She is surprised that her son has a job. He tells her that's why her son is thinner. She approaches Daniel and looks at him with concern. In the next scene, Daniel goes to a restaurant with his mother, and everyone is astounded by his beauty. The mother asks Daniel if he comes here often. He tells her yes because the drinks are cheap. The woman notices he is popular and thinks her son must be jealous of him. Daniel changes the subject. Daniel asks her what she wants to drink, but she is frightened by the price of the coffee and just wants water. Finally, they order an iced coffee and a regular coffee. Daniel sees his mother's worn-out clothes. The lady tells him she liked the drink and hopes her son has tried it too. She asks his name, and Daniel says it's the same as her son's. The woman is surprised and says they look alike. Daniel gets nervous. As they talk, a man exits the bathroom. It's Vasco, who hears Daniel's voice. The lady tells Daniel her son sings very well and that she always supported him to become a singer. Then we see a boy who works at the restaurant warning Vasco not to cause problems or he'll be fired. The woman becomes sad and asks Daniel if her son suffers from bullying at school. She tells him that at his previous school, her son was teased and beaten up and she didn't realize because she worked all day. She feels bad because she earns very little and can't give her son enough. Daniel reassures her, saying her son has friends. Vasco, overhearing everything, squeezes his drink hard and splashes some women who get angry at him. Vasco is very upset because he thinks Daniel is pretending to be a good person and a good friend. The woman thanks Daniel for being a good friend to her son, and he tries to tell her something, but she insists he is. Before leaving, she wants to give him money for the coffee they had, but Daniel refuses to take it. She insists that she should have treated him to the coffee, and if he doesn't accept, she will feel bad with her son. Daniel accepts the money and looks at her moved. He attempts to conceal his tears, while Vasco angrily observes and splashes his drink, creating a chaotic scene. Outside, Daniel offers to take his mother to see her son, but she says no, that she only came to bring him food. She says she's worried her son will get angry about it because he wants to lose weight. But Daniel responds that no, her son will likely appreciate it a lot now that they live apart, and she sees everything she does for him. And before saying goodbye, the woman promises to bring more food next time so they both can enjoy it. Daniel watches his mother leave slowly, but Vasco suddenly interrupts him and tells him he saw everything. Then we see Daniel and Vasco have moved to an empty place. Vasco informs Daniel that he will receive what he deserves, as he believes that Daniel is tormenting the other boy, referring to Daniel in his other body, and not only listening to him, but also giving him orders. Vasco says that by doing that and lying to the lady, he can't forgive Daniel, so he automatically prepares to fight. The protagonist tries to explain the situation, but Vasco doesn't give him a chance, so Daniel has to dodge his blows. Daniel tells Vasco it's all a misunderstanding, but Vasco doesn't listen to him and attacks. Daniel worries because Vasco is fast and strong and could kill him. Vasco hurts Daniel. Daniel asks why he's doing that. Vasco doesn't respond and remembers what he saw at the cafe. He thinks Daniel extorts people. Daniel asked Vasco if he had done something wrong, while Vasco just wanted the money to be returned to the lady. Daniel notices Vasco staring at him and immediately assumes that Vasco wants to rob him like the bullies. This makes Daniel furious, and he firmly tells Vasco that he won't give him his money. Vasco attempts to punch him hard, but Daniel manages to dodge the blow. In retaliation, Daniel tries to land a punch on Vasco's stomach, but Vasco skillfully blocks it with his knee. Vasco then boasts about his years of training in a fighting stance, claiming he can block any attack. Feeling challenged, Daniel also adopts a fighting stance, and Vasco suggests they box. Daniel launches an attack, but Vasco skillfully evades it. Just as the confrontation intensifies, one of Vasco's gang members arrives and shields Vasco with his jacket. Vasco then admits that Daniel defeated him with an elbow spin in Muay Thai style. Although Vasco has lost the fight, he refuses to accept defeat. Later that night, Daniel reflects on his victory and is puzzled about how he managed to defeat Vasco. Vasco, with a patch on his face, unexpectedly shows up at Daniel's workplace. Daniel is concerned about his condition, but Vasco selects a product and apologizes to Daniel because he can't return the money. Determined to become stronger, Daniel starts doing push-ups but accidentally lets out a fart just as a customer enters. Embarrassed, he tries to conceal it, but the woman smiles at him and offers him a drink, encouraging him to keep training. Daniel is smitten with her but struggles to do sit-ups due to his weight. Meanwhile, Daniel and the boy head to the cafeteria, but suddenly some bullies interrupt them, beating up a student. They're from the singing students gang. The gang leader, William, beats up a student. Daniel remembers how he used to be treated in the past, so he walks over to the harassers. William asks Daniel what he's looking at, and William says he recognizes that Daniel is the new student. Everyone starts recording as the tension between them grows even more, but just as they are about to start fighting, the teacher arrives, and everything calms down. In class, we find out that tomorrow is Daniel's birthday. That night, Daniel is at his job, noting that now he knows his voice changes depending on his body. Suddenly, Jessica, the woman he is in love with, enters the store. She asks him if he's still training, and Daniel tells her yes. Jessica gets very happy and tells him to keep it up. The next day, Daniel meets up with David, the boy he saved from the bullies. The other students find it strange that Daniel is hanging out with the weird kids. Jim thinks it's fine and says he has changed and doesn't want to bully anyone anymore because it's wrong. The others are glad because Jim has changed. Ted is in the fashion class and dresses very well. For Daniel's birthday, Ted gives him new and brand name clothes, although Daniel likes to keep a low profile. Back in the classroom, the others say Daniel is handsome but doesn't have good taste in clothing. Ted leaves in his car and leaves Daniel a lot of new, expensive clothes as a gift. That same day, Daniel calls his mom and tells her he's very happy on his birthday because he got new clothes as gifts. When he enters the classroom, everyone is impressed by how Daniel looks in his new outfit. All the girls praise him for looking so handsome. The girls ask Daniel about the clothes, but he clarifies that they were gifted. As we watch, we see Ted remembering the night before, trying to deliver the gift. He tries to write a note to put in the bags, but fails to do so. Instead, he writes a note which simply says, "Happy birthday." In the present, he becomes nervous when he hears that Daniel is about to reveal who gifted him the clothes. However, Daniel notices his nervousness and tells them that it is a gift from a friend. In the next scene, we see an LKS building where William, the leader of the singing class gang, awaits his audition. We also discover that David, Daniel's friend whom he saved from the bullies, is there too. David writes songs. In the next LKS recording, William catches the employees' attention with his rapping skills. The boss asks if he is the last participant, but they tell him no, David remains. However, upon seeing David's appearance, they dismiss him and tell David they've already selected a winner. He begs for a chance, but they deny him due to his looks. While David travels on the bus, he reviews his notes in his book and begins to rap about them. A woman watching mocks him. Suddenly, a cat darts across the bus's path, forcing it to brake abruptly. David sees the woman nearly fall to the floor and offers her the seat next to him, but she declines rudely. All the passengers mock David for his physical appearance. Very embarrassed, David leans on the window and tries to keep rapping, but he can't due to his sadness. The next morning, David sees a poster at school announcing the music festival where you can sign up to showcase your talent, but his excitement diminishes upon hearing two girls mocking him. Suddenly, Daniel enters, causing the girls to admire him as they believe he is a millionaire and fantasize about marrying him. Daniel approaches David and asks what he is looking at, but David, hearing the girls think he is Daniel's servant, questions him again about the reason for pretending to be friends. William waits for David again in the classroom and beats him because David has great ambitions and also tries to participate in the festival, so they tear up his registration form. As they throw it over his head, William tells David to stop trying to participate since he would only embarrass himself. As we watch the beating David receives, Daniel thinks about how he transferred schools for suffering the same as his friend, and upon seeing that now David carries his tormentor's food, he realizes that wherever he goes, there are more like him. Daniel was going to stop William alone, but Jim joined to help David. William and his friends threaten Daniel for interfering. Then Jim arrives and joins Daniel's team. William asks if they are looking for a fight. Daniel says he just wants to have lunch with David and asks them to let him go. But William threatens him, saying they don't know who they are messing with, not just Daniel, but all of them. Suddenly, Vasco and the Burning Knuckles arrive. Vasco tells William he doesn't know who he is messing with. William says Vasco didn't return to school for fighting with dozens of guys, but Vasco denies it. Vasco tells William to get ready to fight and take off his glasses, but William kicks a plate, complains about the interference, and leaves. The students wonder if Vasco, Daniel, and Jim are in an alliance. If so, William and his friends don't stand a chance. Daniel apologizes to Vasco, but he wants to know why he saves David. Daniel says he can't stand to see how they beat him up. Weeks later, Daniel and David will perform at the singing festival as a duo. The girls think Daniel will win, but David sings very well and they practice. David likes rap and is good at it. Excited, David says that combining his rap with Daniel's voice will be incredible. Then he shows Daniel how he arranged the song he heard him sing and asks where he heard it. Daniel isn't sure. He says maybe it came from within and he hums it when he feels alone and tired, as an escape. At night, Daniel apologizes to his friend because he has to work and can't practice anymore. David says not to worry and that he's surprised he can work part-time. The festival starts and all the students attend. A luxury car arrives with Jessica, who decides to go. Upon entering, she sees the activities, but a handsome stylist catches her attention. Even though he cut a girl's hair badly, the girl blushed because of his good looks. Jessica doesn't understand how they can be so foolish and superficial. During the festival, the girls sell a lot of clothes. Meanwhile, Vasco participates in arm wrestling and, although his opponent is strong, he wins and breaks the table. Daniel reaches Jessica and approaches to ask if she came to see the festival, but she asks who he is because with that body, she doesn't recognize him. Jessica questions his strategy of approaching just because of his pretty face. She says not everything revolves around him for having an attractive appearance. Daniel is amazed, as he remembers her as very kind. Jessica tells him that in this school there are many like him, only worried about their looks. She confesses she only wanted to see the performances but is already fed up. Daniel tries to stop her, but the bodyguard Jason forcefully grabs his arm. Although he manages to break free, Jason still punches him and leaves him on the ground. Jason compliments his fighting style, but says Daniel hasn't trained well. Jason says he should follow orders and punch him, but Jessica stops him saying it's not necessary. Jason insists he must do it since Daniel touched her. As he prepares to hit Daniel, Vasco arrives and questions what Jason is doing. Vasco puts down his drinks and says he's Daniel's friend and came to defend him. Jason hears Vasco's threats and mocks him, punching him in the face. Vasco demands he take off his glasses to fight properly. When he takes them off, Jason reveals his dark eyes. Although Jessica tries to stop the fight, they both seem ready to brawl. Remembering Vasco, Daniel gets up to fight, surprising Jason, who thinks together they can't beat him. But Jessica stops Jason and threatens to report he's going around hitting people. Maybe he should return to his original post. Then she gets in the car, and before leaving, Jessica apologizes to them. Vasco nearly faints from the punch. He asks Daniel who they are, and Daniel tells him he just met them too. Frustrated, Vasco says he feels weak. At dusk, the guys share a drink. Although Vasco tries to hide his kindness, he remembers their chat. At night, the shows begin. Behind the stage, Daniel prepares for his performance with David. Suddenly, William and his friend arrive to go on stage, but first they mock Daniel and David. William's show begins, exciting the crowd. Daniel tells David the audience seems to love William, but his friend responds that his song was written by professionals. Daniel starts to lose spirit and doesn't think he can sing like that. But David recommends thinking about who he loves and picturing singing to them so as not to get nervous. When he finishes, William approaches David. David congratulates him on his song, but William tells him to stop pretending to be good and punches David in the stomach. Daniel helps him and prepares to fight William, but David stops him saying they'll win on stage. The boys' turn comes up. Their classmates come to see them, and the record label owner watches, thinking Daniel is attractive, but that's not enough in the industry. His assistant reminds him that the boy next to the handsome one also auditioned at his company. The show is about to start, and Daniel looks at the audience, feeling very nervous. This causes him to get nervous at the start of the song and not be able to sing well. Everyone mocks him. David worries and takes the microphone, rapping first and surprising everyone with his incredible rap. Daniel looks at him and remembers his words. He manages to sing the beautiful song, forgetting his nerves. The record label owner is surprised. His friends smile proudly watching him sing, and the audience can't believe how well they sing. Daniel gained confidence and walked up on stage, remembering his mother and his life. David raps, reminiscing about his suffering. We see the audience's reaction. Jim listens attentively, and Vasco cries with emotion. During the show, the boys enjoy their performance and remember their experiences together. Daniel even remembers his mother carrying him as a baby. Finally, the show ends and they look at the audience going crazy. Daniel and David are left speechless, unable to believe what they have caused in the audience. The audience takes pictures of them and gives ovations while they shake hands. In the next scene, we see the photographs of when they gave the award to Daniel and David. However, William and his friends are resentful since they thought they would be the festival winners. They think David and Daniel only won because of Daniel's good looks. But the record label owner interrupts them and tells them Daniel and David won because of their talent and that they didn't stand a chance against them. The boys are surprised and ask what will happen to them now, but the man leaves saying they should meet later and goes with Daniel and David. He lies to David that he remembers him from his audition and congratulates him on his talent, apologizing for what happened. Finally, he offers his business card and gives them his personal number. David thinks he is going to give it to him, but the LKS owner hands it to Daniel. Daniel doesn't take it because he wants to know what will happen to his friend. The man says he will do very well as long as he's not a professional, and Daniel tries to scold him, but the LKS owner interrupts him and justifies himself, saying he's not the only one who thinks that way. The whole audience thinks the same. They only consume what they like. But that doesn't matter, and he immediately offers a very well-paid contract up front. However, Daniel rejects it, and the LKS owner can't believe it, telling him many die to work with them. Later, David returns home discouraged, writing new songs. In the next scene, David and Daniel see the large number of views from their show video, but David is sad to see they edited it so he doesn't appear. However, he says this motivates him to write new songs and that his appearance shouldn't matter to anyone. John encourages him, confessing his song moved him deeply, and now a man watches the concert video while traveling in an elegant car. We discover it is a famous singer who sent the video to Jessica, who is surprised to recognize the singer is Daniel. But something catches her attention. The song is the same one the boy from the shop sang the other day. The next day, Daniel wakes up next to his other body and starts getting ready for school. After leaving, we see in his room he has all the festival photographs and many congratulatory letters. We also discover that Daniel is friends with Vasco. They even shared an outing with his mother and with David, and they are now inseparable friends.